Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ryu, and in this video, I discuss the very controversial ESEA Always On client update. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone that's watched and shared their feedback on the previous two videos I did that are similar to this one in the format of me essentially sharing thoughts on current happenings in the CSGO scene. They're not really in-depth strategy breakdowns or smoke flashes for positional things on maps. It's a little different than some of the other content, but I enjoy this format a lot, and the feedback's been great, so I plan on continuing to do these. Thank you guys so much. Now, back to the ESEA client update. I would love to pull up their website to show you verbatim what the news announcement said, but at the moment, it is being DDoSed, so I can't show it to you. I think the fact that it's being DDoSed is indicative of the community's outrage towards the update itself. But the update basically said, let's see if this actually, perfect. Basically said that it's going to reboot your machine when you update, and that just like an antivirus, it's going to be always running at all times on your computer. And like an antivirus, it's going to have full access to your system. And what this means is that even if you're not playing on ESEA, if you're playing on a different service, or you're not even playing, you're just using your computer to browse the internet or do some banking or talk to your friends on social media, the ESEA client is there listening. Now, what we don't know is what exactly it's doing. We aren't aware of the things the client is doing and when it's doing it, and that's scary to a lot of people. So what I wanted to do was discuss a little bit of why I think this is, the good, the bad, and the impact, some alternatives, etc. And then give you how it personally impacts me, and then just kind of open it up for discussion. The reason and the intent is very clearly in my mind to catch cheats, to catch cheaters. There's apparently been a handful of cheats, 2 or 3 from what I've been told, that are used a little more pervasively than I think people are willing to admit, that have been able to bypass the client for a pretty lengthy period of time. And ESEA has done a lot to try to catch it. And I guess I should step back. I don't have any insider information. It's not like LP Kane's my brother and he's giving me the lowdown from, behind the scenes at ESEA. This is based on conversations I've had with a lot of people, and then the logical conclusions that I've kind of drawn from it. So don't take anything I'm saying as 100% fact. I think it's probably all true or very accurate at the very least. But I just wanted to put that out there so people aren't like, this is confirmed. And then, they make a thread on the subreddit and it gets upvoted that, Ryu says everybody's cheating. Don't want to do that. So just take all this with kind of that in mind. So apparently there's been a couple cheats, bypassing the client, long period of time, hasn't been caught, they've struggled to catch it. And the reason is that it gets into the system very early on in the Windows running process. I guess startup process is somewhat accurate. I don't know if they're boot time, but we'll dig into that here in a second. And because the client isn't running, the client couldn't detect it, couldn't detect the mechanism in which the cheat was being injected or loaded, and couldn't catch it when it was running. And so ESEA said, okay, well, we want to have a completely clean platform, and we think this is the only way we can really do it, so we're going to do it, and that's the way it is. So when you update it, reboot your machine, and it'll actually, based on some threads in the forums, impact your boot time. So that's something you need to be aware of, is that if you had a 15 to 30 second boot time, it might be 45 seconds to a minute now. And the reason for that is that the client is now injecting itself at a very deep level of Windows very early in the process so that it can get on board and listening before whatever this cheat or these handful of cheats can. So it's trying to get in the door before the cheats do. That way when the cheat runs, it can catch it, etc. And I think what we'll see from this, my belief, a little optimistic, is that we're going to see a very big ban wave, and or we're going to see a fall off on certain players that are playing at a high level, meaning do great stats, that we're going to see fall off. Now, I'm not going to name names of players that I think cheat or have cheated or have been banned that are going to get caught again. But I think that we're going to see that happen. That's my hope. I hope it's a lot of people and that they're gone and we can just move on with our lives. And they get caught. I think the people that stop running it and they kind of fall off, it's a little less of a thrill for me to watch, the nerds get banned. That's the intention. That's a little bit of the mechanism they're trying to use, is we want to run so that the cheats can't get loaded without us knowing about it. So we're going to be listening at all times. Um, the other thing to note is that there's been some issues with the update. So if you're blue screening, et cetera, there's some other threads you can post in that'll give you some things that you can troubleshoot. JW had some really bad issues with it yesterday for several hours, which is a risk when you work at that deep of a level of Windows. Things can go a little haywire. So kind of a downside to that. Now, the reason people are kind of popping off here with all these threads of like hundreds and hundreds of comments and upvotes is that for those that don't know, assuming most of you watching do know, so I won't go super deep on it, uh, ESEA had injected a Bitcoin mining piece of software into their client without telling anyone, and without telling people, used their video cards to mine for Bitcoin, cause crashes, caused some actual hardware damage, got sued, lost $1 million lawsuit in the state of New Jersey, and as a result, the brand itself and the people that run the organization have very little trust from the community. As a whole, the community doesn't really trust ESEA. And what they're asking for with this update is trust us unconditionally. And you can see why there'd be some disconnect there. Now, as part of that lawsuit, which I think is in one of these screenshots, yeah, so you can see, there's had monitoring code, it tracked programs, blah blah blah. They had to pay a $350,000 fine as a result of the lawsuit, and the other $650,000 gets paid if they're not in their best behavior. So right now they have some level of government oversight to make sure that they actually behave this time and they don't fall back into the things that they were doing before. For that reason, I don't personally feel like ESEA is going to do malicious things, or the ESEA personnel, including LP Kane, by having this piece of software on my computer. To me, the bigger risk is now that they're an even bigger target than they were, somebody gets into their systems and then can control all of our systems. That to me is the risk. A little bit of the who watches the Watchmen thing, right? We're giving them all this power. Well, what happens if someone kind of comes above them and takes their power? We're all kind of screwed. And it might sound like cybersecurity movie voodoo. I work in the technology space, and these types of persistent threats that somebody drops some malicious software out there, it does nothing for 3 months, comes online, and then can do all kinds of stuff. Very real threat. This isn't fantasy things. Sony Online Entertainment, great example of that. So that to me is the risk. In addition to not really trusting this company, giving up essentially all your privacy to that company that you don't trust, LP Kane, which I love it when people still call him IP Kane or IP Kane on the forums. When I read that on the forums or on Reddit, I laugh. I don't know why. To me, it's funny. I know it's like I'm 6 years old, but it's really funny when people do it. So IP Kane comes out and basically tells people, "Yep, give me your money, and if you don't trust me, don't give me your money. And if you don't like it, too bad, go away. But otherwise, pay me your money." And so people were like, "Well, I mean, we're giving you a ton of access here. Can you give us some assurances? Can you tell us like?" You're not going to be looking at our private files or browser history or whatever. And he basically said, not answering any of your questions. If you don't like it, too bad, unsubscribe. And so people super, super pissed by this, and understandably so. LP Kane or Hip Kane really not very, probably wouldn't have an alternative career in public relations. Right? It's a very nice way to say it. Just really not what he's good at. So between that, the lack of trust, the history of the company, essentially you giving up your privacy, a complete shitstorm erupted of people saying, "I'm canceling. I don't want to give these people my money." And I totally understand it. If you're a casual player and you play pickup games and that's kind of your thing, totally, to me, acceptable for you to cancel your subscription and play on a different platform. Now, the impact it has to me is hopefully it gets rid of some of these cheaters. Again, I'm not going to name any of them. But hopefully it gets rid of cheaters, which kind of keeps the scene clean and legitimate. As an impact to me, that would be great. The other impact that it has to me is that I have several computers that I use for both personal and work, especially like my gaming laptop, for example. If I need to play in a match or scrim or practice and I'm traveling or not at my house, I have a gaming laptop. And I can't risk having ESEA or someone by proxy of ESEA accessing my customer's information. So in order for me to do that, I would have to keep the client off my machine at all times, remove any information that I think, and usually for me, like if it's a sensitive information that I need to work on locally, I'll download it, work on it, submit it, and then delete it. Then I would put the client on reboot and then play. So for me, it's a little bit of an inconvenience, kind of a pain in the neck, but that's the model I'm going to have to work with. Now, on my game PC at home, totally different story. I think a lot of people are saying alternatively they're going to dual boot, so they'll have basically two installations of their operating system of choice. And when they want a game, they boot the one with the ESEA client, CSGO, and that's basically all it has. And then for everything else, they'll boot into the other version. That's an acceptable solution too, because you still can't cheat, and that's ultimately the goal here, I think. But you feel like you still have your privacy. Now, if that's too much of a pain in the ass and you really didn't like LP Kane's responses, so you still want to cancel, again, totally get it. For me, that was the impact that I had there. Um, what else? Some of the other things that I learned, which I thought were pretty interesting, is that apparently Hitler didn't use punctuation or capitalization. So make sure you guys are using your periods, your commas, semicolons, and you properly capitalize. Something I learned as part of this discussion. And I guess that's pretty much it. Yeah, I think that's it. So thank you guys again for watching. I will hopefully have this video up in the next couple of hours. And by then, I'm hoping that the ESEA forums kind of claw their way back up. Don't really know if that's going to be the case. For those who aren't familiar, really brief explanation of what this is. If you start getting this kind of page, or when you try to go to ESEA, you get a Cloudflare kind of intercepting your communication thing. Cloudflare is a service that mitigates DDoS specifically for websites and a couple other things. And so when you're putting this URL into your browser, what they basically do is they take this request first. So this is actually pointing at Cloudflare. Cloudflare then looks at your request and says, is this legitimate or is this someone DDoSing? Okay, it's legitimate. I'm going to send it through to the backend server that only I know about. And if not, I'm going to filter all that traffic so that ESEA doesn't have to worry about getting DDoSed. Unfortunately, ESEA in the decade that I've been a customer didn't have this before for whatever reason. And when someone DDoSes you, so this on the internet has an IP address. When the bad guys have this IP address, which is usually a load balancer or some other way of spreading out that load, adding this after the fact is kind of like closing the barn door after the horses are gone. Because I'm not going to be attacking this. I'm attacking what this actually is in an IP address on the internet. So I'm never going to have to get filtered here. So hopefully they fix this. There's a bunch of technology and technical ways in which that should be fairly simple to fix. Hopefully it'll be back online by the time this video gets up there. Again, appreciate everybody that's spent the past, how long have we been going? 13 minutes listening to this video. Please share your feedback, good, bad, indifferent, your thoughts on this particular matter. Greatly appreciated and valued. And thank you guys so much for watching.